Interval House approached us to create an infomercial for them. We had done infomercials for, telecom and financial institutions, but we had never endeavored doing an infomercial for a women's shelter. That was a new area for us. We had done some not-for-profit for some other organizations, but this was really a big learning curve for us in terms of how do we communicate this message in a thoughtful way, in a way that engages people, in a way that represents Interval House, who they are and what they're trying to do. They really wanted to show what intimate partner violence was. It was a bit of an education piece. And they also wanted to show the various stories, and that was, it doesn't affect a certain demographic, a certain socioeconomic background, a certain ethnicity. It affects everybody. There was a lot of prep work that we needed to do to interview women and find out their stories. And I have to say, that was one of the most emotionally draining things I'd ever gone through. And what I thought I knew going into this was very, very different than what I came out with. We interviewed women who had gone through unspeakable violence. And it's different hearing about it on the news than sitting across from this woman and them telling you their story. The stories were, they were unbelievable. They were unbelievable. They're believable because they're telling us, but unbelievable that that kind of violence takes place. So a lot of the work we did was listening. They're very vulnerable and brave for coming forward and telling their stories. We wanted to be respectful in the way that we told them as well, too. You could use a sort of a regular actor and so on, but we wanted to have people that other people would recognize, so that, a lot of people at the time, when you're channel surfing, not as much anymore, but when you're channel surfing, seeing Colin Mockery, who's, amazing Canadian actor on screen, it gets you to stop. And if we can stop them by seeing that person and then get them engaged by telling the story, that's a really important part of what we do. So having people that were recognizable, that can provide the context around these stories was really, really important. Choosing the actors was a really key part of this, and it was a really emotional journey for a lot of the actors as well, too. It's a difficult topic. Some people may have had experience with intimate partner violence, some may not. That was a big part of it as well. So the process of doing this was a huge task that, when it says it takes a village, it really did. It took coordination from a lot of people, and a lot of people donating their time, a lot of people donating locations for us to get this done. There's a governing body in Canada that reviews all commercials prior to them going on air, and to make sure there's nothing in there that they see as being, inappropriate or explicit or anything like that. After we had done sort of the initial rough cut of this and we're ready to go, they had said it was too violent. So we did have to edit some of the scenes out. And again, we weren't showing a lot of sort of graphic violence. We didn't think we needed to. It's implied, but we didn't show a lot of it. But even with the implied, we needed to bring it down in order to make it palatable for the viewing audience. When we were told it was too violent to air, I guess my initial reaction is, that's reality. That's what happened. And why should we sugarcoat what actually happened? and I guess the other part was there's, you see violent movies regularly. We're almost desensitized to it. So just because this is real, we shouldn't show it. We hope people at least had more of an understanding of what intimate partner violence was, because I think it was an education tool as well too. And then hopefully there may have been women watching, and from that they could have found the strength to actually phone and get help. There's some lovely things that came out of that in terms of definitely more of an education and awareness for me. So a little bit of personal growth. We kept in touch with Leslie and Nadine, and I'd say they became friends. And with getting to know the people at Interval House, just we understood that this was a special place. And so we kept in touch. I became a donor. I remember speaking to Leslie a couple of years ago. We spoke about a lot of things happening in the world, and where I am in my career now and personal growth. It really was, what else can I be doing? And it was, well after that, that she called up and said, hey, we're looking for board members for Interval House. And it just felt like the right fit. It's almost like my relationship with Interval House came full circle and then shortly after that, Leslie called up and said, so we're kind of looking for a position of the chair for the board, and thought about you guys. It was really a no-brainer. It really is my honor to be part of this organization. I find when I'm talking to someone about Interval House, a lot of people might know the name, but they don't know exactly what they do. And it's not just a place that women can go to. It really is a all-encompassing place in that they are provided not only a warm, safe place, education on how to get a job and do resumes, mental health support and services. So it's much more than just a place to go to and escape to. It deals with the whole person. And I think that's a really important part of it as well too. And with the BEST program and so on, they've done some amazing work in terms of they've provided support so that women can then help support themselves and their families. There's this misconception that it's only a certain group or a certain culture or people who don't necessarily have a lot. That is not the case at all. From my experience talking with many of these women, it's people of different cultural backgrounds, different religions. It's people who have money, it's people who don't. It crosses the spectrum of who we are. It's not limited in any way. It impacts people differently. And sometimes people who have a lot will feel that they have to keep this hidden. They're dealing with it on a whole different level because there's the stigma that's attached to it as well too. One of the things that endeared me to the people who run Interval House was that they understand it's not an issue just for women. It's men need to participate in this as well. And men need to be part of the solution as well too. And so you have to be able to appeal to a large donor base or interest base. It can't be just, one or a single group, because it impacts so many people. And they were smart enough to know that from the beginning. I've appreciated that they're smart women, they're thoughtful women, but they're entrepreneurs. And that, I think, has made them as successful as they are because they think that way. And it's important to think that way. There's nobody else in this space would go, hey, and let's do an infomercial to try and raise money at all. But the fact that they said, you know what, let's do this. Let's try this. It's never been done before. I don't think it's been done since. They were trailblazers and they understood that we need to reach people. So what is another tool that we can use? And the infomercial is one of those. They've been doing that since they began, right? I think that takes a lot of courage to be able to push the boundaries and think outside of the box and test things and not be upset if they don't work, but to learn from that. That's key, right? And they've done that successfully time and time and time again. It's unfortunate that I say celebrating 50 years. It's a weird word to use when you're talking about a woman's shelter. But the fact is, if they didn't have it, there'd be many, many more people that are suffering and had no place to go. So it is a celebration that they're able to provide this support to women.